We are back. My next guest is a highly qualified authority on the future of media and publishing, a regular speaker at Book Expo America and the Association of Writers and Writing Programs. She also serves as a contributing editor for Writer's Digest and currently an assistant professor of e-media at the University of Cincinnati. Please welcome to our show Professor Jane Friedman. Hi, Jane.
Thank you very much. Hi there. Pleasure to be here.
And the crowd is going wild, of course. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. As a writer myself, it's a pleasure to have you on the show and an honor. And I've got like 700 questions to ask you, so we'll dive right in.
Okay.
What exactly is e-learning, Jane?
Well, I would distinguish between the terms e-media and e-learning. So my specialization is in e-media, which has to do with basically any type of media that might involve the Internet or TV, radio, basically anything that we would not consider analog. So it's a very broad term, and therefore it's pretty confusing. Sometimes people use the term new media to differentiate between radio and television and forms of media on the Internet. Probably what's really interesting is that there's this other term called convergence that talks about how all types of media are converging or coming together in such a way that you can no longer tell specifically what the originating media was. So an example of that might be watching a TV program on your mobile phone. Are you engaging there in mobile media or in television or in something else entirely? So if we talk about e-learning, that's simply about the processes of learning through online education in some manner, whether through a traditional university or through some other type of institution.
Well, you brings me to my next question. You have an extensive background in history and writing and publishing industry. Where did this interest come from?
Well, it's been something that I've been involved with since I was young. So I've always been involved in some respects in writing and editing and publishing, even back to middle school. So I got involved in publishing through an internship, which a lot of universities have for their media students and other types of professionals or prospective professionals. They'll have internship and co-op programs because it's so integral to the process of getting into the industry. So I had an internship while I was in college, and then I ended up in publishing right after graduation. So I've been involved for a long time in various facets, and certainly I came into the industry at an interesting time because it was undergoing a pretty radical transformation due to all of the new media and technology that was digitizing how work got done, how work was distributed, and how people were consuming information.
I would have that new media is shaping the way our world reads, writes, absorbs information. It's truly changing every day, isn't it?
It is, and sometimes it's hard to advise writers and authors and other people in the business because what's true today may certainly change within days, weeks, months. That's the only consistent that I can point to is that you can expect it to change.
Right. Well, I want to touch a little bit about education because it does have some, it's a little off target, but I wanted to bring this question up specifically about reading. Why does it appear that there are many more authors, especially in the self-published sector, yet it appears fewer readers? Is that a fair assessment of where we're actually headed?
Well, it's a fascinating question. The National Endowment for the Arts actually came out with a study, I would say within the last 5 years, that said reading was down. But the study was highly criticized because it was very particular in the type of reading it was looking at. It was looking at the reading of particularly great literary works. And it wasn't necessarily looking at all of the reading that happens in an online environment. So, for instance, if I think about my current students at the University of Cincinnati, certainly, if I assign a book or some other formal reading, they're looking for every way to avoid it. And it's only through, and I have to use punitive measures to ensure that they're going to be reading this material.
Oh, wow.
But on the other hand, they're all reading. I mean, they're reading during class, but they're reading things that they oughtn't be reading. They're reading texts, they're reading blogs, they're reading Facebook, they're reading all sorts of things that have to do with their social circles and relationships that are taking priority over the academic reading. So I think it's I don't think it's necessarily correct to say that we're not reading as much as we used to. Certainly we can talk about, well, what is it exactly that people are reading, and is it more valuable, and are we having what we would call really focused, in-depth, immersive reading? But I think that there are a lot of people who are wringing their hands over this that are maybe just suffering through how our culture has changed rather than identifying something that would actually be social decay. I like to avoid putting any kind of value judgments on what's happening. I mean, none of us really know what the impact of this will be, and so I think there are a lot of good aspects to it, and there are a lot of things that we just have no idea how it's going to fall out. So it doesn't bother me. That's the short answer. I'm not worried.
Well, Professor Friedman, your opinion certainly matters. What are your feelings about the rise of self-published authors? Does it minimize or dilute the industry, in your opinion?